Hi, I'm Echo, and I have no experience with Discworld, and I'm reading all of the books, without any pre-knowledge of the series. That being said, I'm making these video logs to just ramble about my thoughts on the series. So let's get into the speed draw and the ramble. So I'm thinking that from here on out, I'm going to talk about my favorite moment from each book instead of the whole book. Because this way I can better analyze and, well, do a speed draw of a specific moment. So I just finished The Light Fantasy, and my favorite moment is when Rincewind, a wizard who can't do magic, goes to Death's cottage to save his friend Two Flower. This scene is my favorite due to it adding more backstory to Death. In this scene, we find out that he has a daughter that he's adopted, named Isabel. I like this bit of characterization because it really makes me wonder what happened to cause Death to adopt a child. Did her parents die? Did he, kidnap her? Or did he just, go to an orphanage and just be like, I want to adopt a child? We also find out that Death had guests over when Rincewind is trying to get his friend back. These guests are the other three horsemen of the apocalypse. This on its own is some interesting world building, but I immediately tied it to Good Omens, the only other Terry Pratchett novel I've read. In Good Omens, the four horsemen are also, for lack of a better word, friends, and Death is also described to look similar in both books, which makes me wonder if the books could take place in the same multiverse. Is this Death the same Death as the Death in Good Omens? Something to think about. In this piece I'm drawing currently, is a scene that takes place right after Rincewind finds Two Flower. And Two Flower is actually teaching the four horsemen how to play a card game. And when Rincewind finds him and drags him out of the room, I like to think that this is about the scene that happens after this. This scene really humanizes the horsemen. Well, humanizes, lacking a better word, because they are just personifications of war, pestilence, famine, and death, respectively, from left to right. For instance, a moment that really, again, lack of a better word, humanizes Death is when he gets frustrated with the game and questions Tizar on how humans, with their short lives, can possibly have time to learn a game as complicated as this. The game is probably a game like euchre or bridge, because they mentioned it's a trump card, but I'm not exactly sure, but it's a card game that I know how to play, at least, and so I find that funny, that Death himself is struggling with something as simple as a game of cards. Oh, I also can't talk about this part of the book without mentioning the clock that Death has in his house. It's described as a clock that has a sharp pendulum, and the type of tick that makes you very aware of the passing time. I used to have a clock like this in my room until I ended up taking the batteries out, because it's very unsettling when you're trying to sleep and you can understand each second passing and how much time is going by and counting down the seconds until morning. It's hard to sleep with a clock like that. This clock in and of itself is oddly focused on throughout the scene as well, to the point that anyone who understands basic literary analysis gets that it obviously symbolizes something. My guess is that it symbolizes the last moment of each person's life. It's just a theory, and it probably is going to be chosen on. But the reason why this is my theory is because when Two Flower uses his camera to take a picture of it, the demon inside the camera produces something that is described as frightening. And what could be more frightening than to watch billions of people die all at once? I'm probably wrong about what the clock is, but that's my best guess with the information I currently have. I'm also going with this guess off of the fact that as Rincewind is walking up to the cottage, he hears a bunch of people's last moments, moments before disaster type things. Don't point that bow at me, or, oh, just lean over this cliff here, it's a really good view, and stuff along those lines. Like I said, my guess is probably wrong, but it's the best guess I have with the information I currently have available. I'm guessing that this will be expanded upon, though, in the book called Mort. This is due to the fact that one of the horsemen addresses death by the name of Mort. So I'm assuming that this book will give us more of the character of Death and explain a lot of the confusing things in this scene.
I didn't really talk about everything I wanted to talk about in this scene. I just barely touched on the stuff going on the outside of Death's cottage, but that might be something to talk about in a future video. Well, here's the final product of the speed draw, so I guess the video's done. I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye!